Hello, everybody, and it has been about a week since the Oscar nominations, and I've had a little time to mull them over in my head, and I've been having these thoughts that I just wanted to air out. This is not really like a scripted video. This is not really anything. It's not meant to be the most specific thing in the world, but there's two topics regarding the Oscar nominations that have just been buzzing around in my head, and I just sort of want to air out these thoughts and hopefully get some feedback on them. And one of these topics is I'm Still Here, and that movie's surprise nomination for Best Picture. And the other topic is Emilia Perez, and that movie's status as one of the most hated Best Picture frontrunners in a very, very long time. So let's start with the I'm Still Here issue. And I don't want to say issue. The tricky thing about this nomination is I don't hate it. I'm not upset that it got here. It's a good movie. It is definitely not the weakest film in the Best Picture lineup, but you can't deny that it is a surprise. Now, obviously, I was aware that this movie had a very dedicated fandom, with practically the entire country of Brazil campaigning hard for this movie online. Every single time there's an Oscar-related video, there's someone in the comments section from Brazil talking about I'm Still Here. And I'm not trying to disparage these people, because there's probably going to be one in the comments of this video. But if you love your movie, you love your movie. But you do have to acknowledge that having an online fandom is usually not enough to get recognition from the Academy, especially with a lack of precursors. I mean, we saw just this year, Challengers was the movie that film Twitter loved, and it couldn't get a single nomination, which is frustrating. But I'm Still Here. This movie did not get nominated for Best Picture at any of the major precursors. At least with some of the other Best Picture surprises, like Women Talking, at least that had a SAG Ensemble nomination. What was the other? Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. That had at least a Critics' Choice nomination. And these were all big surprises, but they had one of the major precursors that let us know that it was at least a possibility. With I'm Still Here, I did a deep dive into all of the precursors this year, because I could not find even a single regional critics awards like the Dallas-Fort Worth Film Critics, or the Nashville Film Critics. There's like so many individual film critics groups for every city. I could not find a single one of those groups that nominated I'm Still Here for Best Picture. In fact, outside of some local Brazilian awards, the only group that I could find that nominated I'm Still Here for Best Picture was the Gold Derby Film Awards, which is voted on by online voters. So it's no wonder that that's the only thing that I'm Still Here was able to get. And again, this is not a criticism of the movie by any means, but it is striking that this movie was not showing up. It was showing up for international feature, and it got a few mentions here and there for actress, but it wasn't really showing up in picture. And one of the things I was noticing was clearly a lot of critics groups were not a fan of Emilia Perez, as we'll get to, and wanted to shine the light on a different international movie. But between I'm Still Here, which had this squadron of Brazilian supporters online, but All We Imagine Is Light, which was winning the most international feature awards and got the surprise Golden Globe Director Award, Seed of the Sacred Fig, which had the very, very striking story behind its making, and people really wanting to support that director, and Kneecap, which did very, very well at the BAFTA long lists. It just seemed like there were too many international contenders, and they all had some level of support. But I was telling myself all season long that they were just going to cancel each other out, which is why I was not predicting any of them to get into Best Picture. And even when I'm Still Here did, the fact that it just got into picture without a director nomination, or at least a screenplay nomination, is really, really surprising, because normally an international contender, if it is going to contend for picture, it would contend for at least one of those. I'm Still Here, it only got 3 nominations, and everyone was expecting the international nomination, and most people, if they were paying attention, probably clocked on that Fernanda Torres was probably happening, an actress, But this nomination for Best Picture was so completely out of left field. And there's naturally some people upset that it took a slot from Sing Sing or A Real Pain or September 5, which I don't think is entirely fair. Again, it's definitely not the worst film, and it is a fun, exciting surprise. But, yeah, so in trying to figure out how this happened, my best estimation. So I mentioned earlier that we haven't gotten women talking and extremely loud and incredibly close. Those at least had a precursor mention. The only time, it's only ever happened once in the expanded Best Picture lineup that we've gotten a movie nominated for Best Picture that didn't have a Best Picture mention at any of the other precursors. And that movie was The Blind Side, which was the very first year of the expanded Best Picture lineup. So they were still sort of figuring things out. But also, Sandra Bullock was a very real force of nature in the Best Actress conversation that year. Now, we were all sort of assuming that the Bullock was going to win and not take the movie along with it, like we saw later with Julianne Moore in Still Alice, or Glenn Close tried to do in The Wife. Like, the movie is a strong contender for actress, but not necessarily for the movie. But it turns out that that movie was so well-liked by the acting branch, and not for nothing, but that movie did do very well at the box office that year, too, so Oscar voters who were just brand new, used to having 10 slots and not really sure what to put there, was like, oh, why not just cross off The Blind Side there? So I'm like, okay, how does this translate to this year? How does this translate to I'm Still Here? And the big thing that happened was this movie won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Drama, which was not the most shocking thing in the world, but it was considered a bit of a surprise, and Fernanda Torres got up on stage and gave a speech. And what I'm assuming is that Oscar voters who were watching the Golden Globes were like, oh, I'm Still Here. I haven't watched that one yet. Let me just check that one off my list of screeners. And they went to watch it and they were like, oh, I really like this movie. And it was like the last thing that voters saw, and just enough people were like, you know what, I'm going to cross it off in Best Picture. Now, that still doesn't explain how it missed in director or screenplay, but maybe the majority of the people who watched it last minute were in the acting branch because they were looking at it specifically for Fernanda Torres. And I guess that would make sense but just enough people got in. I feel like it must have just barely gotten in by the skin of its teeth, which is also confusing because at the same time, we have Nickel Boys, which got in with just Best Picture and Best Screenplay, missed cinematography. I feel like that one barely got in by the skin of its teeth also. And at the same time, Dune Part 2, which significantly underperformed compared to the previous one, I feel like that one might have actually been pretty close to... Yeah, so I don't know what the bottom three must have looked like. I think those three movies... I feel like if we were still in the sliding scale era, we would have just gotten 7 Best Picture nominees. I don't even know if Dune or I'm Still Here or Nickel Boys, I think those 3 get left out. So with this suddenly in mind, then the question becomes, okay, what is I'm Still Here going to do? Is this sudden show of support, does this mean that Fernanda Torres is going to win Best Actress? Well, hold your horses, because the big problem with that is Torres was only nominated for the Golden Globe. That was the only precursor that she got. So she cannot win Critics' Choice, SAG, or BAFTA that would help her momentum. So if Demi Moore goes on to sweep everything, then we know she's taking the Oscar. But if there's a little bit of a question as to who else is sweeping everything, like let's say, completely hypothetically, Mikey Madison wins Critics' Choice, then Cynthia Erivo wins SAG, and then Carla Sofia Gascon wins BAFTA. Now everybody has something, and it's a total toss-up. Then I guess the attention would go to Fernanda Torres. That is a wild situation that I don't think is probably going to happen. I do think Demi Moore is in a good position right now, but if there's some hesitation, Torres could come up the middle. Now, but what would really be a very big show of support for that movie would be if it can potentially win international feature prizes over Emilia Perez at Critics' Choice and BAFTA. Which is a nice segue over to the other topic, because this is technically the first year that we've gotten 2 movies nominated for both Best Picture and Best International Feature, which in theory should make the category a little bit more unpredictable. But Emilia Perez is the giant frontrunner. The movie had 13 nominations. It was 1 Selena Gomez nomination away from tying the all-time nomination record, which is crazy. And based on that haul, and based on its Golden Globes performance, I would say, as of right now, if I had to place a bet on what movie is winning Best Picture as of right now, I would say Emilia Perez. I would say, and if Oscar voting were held right now, it would definitely be Emilia Perez. But here's the thing. In all the years that I've been doing awards predictions, I have never seen such a giant disconnect between how a movie is viewed by film Twitter and how a movie is viewed by the industry. Like, it is insane. For a movie that was 1 away from tying the all-time record and is clearly in the limelight as of right now, film Twitter hates this movie with a capital H. If you look at the letterboxd curve, Emilia Perez is the least liked out of all the Best Picture nominees, and it's not even close. Like, I don't think I've seen a single person online defending Emilia Perez, or if I had, it'll be a very half-hearted, I mean, it's okay, I guess. I mean, it's not a Razzie movie, it's not a Razzie movie, but this is so clearly not what the general population wants to see as the Best Picture winner, and the industry as a whole seems to be largely oblivious to that. They seem to be very, very gung-ho on this is the best movie of the year. And film critics, critics would occasionally nominate it for something, but it didn't make the top 10 for Best Picture. I think it got into, like, international feature or supporting actress for Saldana or song, and those were the places where voters went hard for it. But it was not, if you just look at the industry awards, it was not doing nearly as well as you would expect looking at the current industry nominations at Golden Globes, at BAFTA, and now at Oscar. This thing is really, really beloved. And here's the interesting thing about all of this. The first time I watched the movie, I honestly thought it was pretty good. I didn't absolutely love it. It wasn't one of my favorites of the year, but I enjoyed it. And the more time has passed and the more I've kind of sat with the movie, the more I'm realizing how problematic it is. And in recent weeks, I've been watching a lot of the other videos by people who are actually trans and by people who are actually Mexican, breaking down how the representation of the movie is really, really not ideal. And I want to say, for the record, I don't think that just because Jacques Audiard is a straight white man, he should never have made a movie about a Mexican trans woman. But I do think if you're going to make a movie about a subject matter that is outside of your life experience, it's very, very important that you put in the time and effort and do your research. One of my favorite movies is Coco. Pete Docter, white director, Pixar, USA animation studio, but they took their time. They did their research to make sure that the representation was as authentic as possible. And you can really tell because the Hispanic audiences went nuts for that movie. And this is a movie where Hispanic audiences are not going nuts for it. Everyone who lives in Mexico is like, this is not what our culture is like. And it's been resurfaced now that Jacques Audiard didn't even attempt to do any research. He was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I already know everything I need to know. And with that going around, it seems like people are almost more up in arms about the Mexican representation than the trans representation, though I have seen people upset by that too. It's not like it necessarily takes us backwards or is hugely, hugely insulting from what I've heard, but people are like, it's really, really not the best representation. This is a cis person's view of what a trans story is like. But here's the thing. When I look at general Oscar voters and what they're thinking of, and a lot of people are comparing this to Crash and Green Book, where it seems progressive. On the surface, voters are like, yeah, I'm voting for this movie because it's progressive. And I don't think they're really aware of how not progressive it is and how surface level it is, even though the internet is so prolific now and there's so many people making posts about it. I don't know if Oscar voters are aware, or if they are, I think they're misjudging the backlash. They're like, oh, people on the internet don't like it. It must be just angry Republicans who are calling the movie woke because it's about a trans person. Which, to be fair, those people also exist. So I can understand from their perspective, oh, we want to stick it to those people. We want to stick it to the current political administration and the very real fact that trans rights are in jeopardy right now. So if we vote for this movie, then we're standing in solidarity with the trans community, which would be nice, except the trans community does not like this movie. And I don't think they actually know that. Also, again, as someone who is cisgender and maybe has a limited point of view in this discussion, I would like to point out that Emilia Perez is not even the best trans movie of the year because, well, first of all, if Will and Harper were not a documentary, it would probably be winning Best Picture because that is exactly the sort of thing that they go for. It's a very, very palatable story about a trans person and her cis friend going on a road trip together and talking about all of these things that you've probably always wanted to ask about but were too afraid to. And like that would play like gangbusters. Unfortunately, the documentary branch does not respond to that movie, and neither did the song branch, apparently. So that's not in contention. But then there's also my favorite movie of 2024, which is I Saw the TV Glow. And if there is a silver lining about this whole Emilia Perez situation, it's that more and more people are talking about I Saw the TV Glow as a point of comparison, and more people are recommending, oh, this is the good trans movie from this year that you should watch, which is very, very good. If you haven't seen I Saw the TV Glow, I highly, highly recommend it. But with all of that said, if we try to get back to the matter at hand here, is Emilia Perez actually going to win Best Picture at the end of the day? Because I've been thinking about this, and initially, before I saw some of those other videos, I was sort of like, yeah, maybe it's not the best representation, but any representation is better than no representation, and at least it's something. But the longer I've sort of sat with it, the more I've been like, yeah, it would look really bad for the Oscars to give this Best Picture, and it would not hold up well as a winner at all. And as someone who cares about the Oscars and the legacy of the Oscars, I highly prefer it when they get it right. And to be fair, the last 2 years, they really got it right with Everything Everywhere and Oppenheimer. Both of those movies, I think, will stand the test of time very well as winners. And so maybe we would just do a bad winner. But I don't know. I really would like it if something better could win. And I do think it could happen. So just because a movie gets the most nominations and is declared the frontrunner early on, that doesn't always mean it's going to carry on, because the Oscar season takes a long time. And usually the movie that starts out as the frontrunner, there can be backlash. And there certainly is backlash here, but as of right now, it hasn't seemed to caught on within the industry yet. So I think we need to see, first of all, people within the industry speaking out about it, and people in the trans community speaking out about it, about how this is not good representation. And for the Oscars to understand, not only is there backlash, but the backlash is not just angry Republicans. There is real reasons why this is not a very good movie and would not be a great winner. But at the same time, I think the other thing that we need to do is we need to figure out what number 2 is. We need to figure out what movie stands the best shot at taking down Emilia Perez. Because as of this moment, I really don't feel like there's a consensus answer to that question. Some people say The Brutalist, some say Conclave, some say Honora, some even say Wicked. And as of right now, I have this worry that it might actually be a complete unknown given how well that movie did with nominations. But in trying to piece this together, the big thing that always helps me figure out what's going to win Best Picture is just the major industry awards: Golden Globes, Critics' Choice, SAG, BAFTA, PGA. As of right now, we've only had one of those, and Emilia Perez and The Brutalist are currently on the table for movies that could go all the way and win. Now, Critics' Choice, I think, is definitely not going to give it to Emilia Perez. I think there's enough critics in the industry that do not like the film and will want an excuse to give it to anything else. I don't know as of right now if that's going to be Anora or The Brutalist. If it is The Brutalist, then that winning Critics' Choice on top of Golden Globe, that's going to solidify that movie as, okay, this is the number 2. This is the one that we really got to focus on as the film that can topple Emilia Perez. But even then, that movie, there is controversy surrounding that one regarding the use of AI, which was going around, and the length and people not finishing it. I do think that controversy has died down a little bit since it did well the nominations and it got everything that it needed to. And there's also Anora, which did pretty well at nominations and could also win Critics' Choice. That particular movie is the most well awarded by the Critics Industry Awards, by the Regional Critics Awards, sorry. But here's the thing. BAFTA, I highly, highly suspect is going to go for Emilia Perez. I guess it's possible they go for Conclave in case that movie ends up being the surprise underdog. But for whatever reason, I just don't have a ton of faith in Conclave being the one to pull it off at the end of the day because it hasn't really won anything major other than the Globe for Screenplay. And I do get the sense that it's just going to win Screenplay at the Oscars and nothing else. Now, here's what's so funny to me. There's a part of me that feels like the movie with the best shot at taking over from Emilia Perez and becoming the new frontrunner is actually Wicked, which I know is crazy because it's not nominated for either director or edit. It's nominated for editing. It's not nominated for director or screenplay. And I think you have to go all the way back to Grand Hotel to find a movie that won picture without being nominated for director or screenplay. But with that said, Wicked did very, very well with nominations, getting into score, visual effects, and especially editing. The editing nomination, there's no reason that movie should have gotten in there. And that is a very strong show of support. Now, and part of the reason why I think it can happen, I think Wicked could definitely win SAG Ensemble, though I think Emilia Perez could also make a show for that. And it could definitely win PGA. Now, I don't think Emilia Perez stands a realistic shot at winning PGA because they always go for movies that did well at the box office, and Emilia Perez is a streaming movie, so I don't see it winning that. But Wicked, if it wins SAG and PGA, that puts it on the map. But we also need to see Ariana Grande becoming more of a threat in supporting actress over Zoe Saldana, which is tricky. But I think the reason it could happen with Wicked is because Wicked is actually a good musical. Like, even if you don't understand why the trans representation and the Hispanic representation is not good in Emilia Perez, you can at least understand that Wicked is functionally a better musical than Emilia Perez is. And so I think it would be really easy for Oscar voters who currently have Emilia Perez at the number 1 right now to convince them to pivot and be like, but Wicked is the better musical. And Wicked is similar enough to Emilia Perez, because I feel like if they shifted to something else like Anora or Brutalist, it would just feel like too abrupt of a shift. For some reason, this seems plausible. And I think the only one, I'm pretty sure I talked about every major precursor. I don't know what's going to happen at SAG or PGA, but I don't think Emilia Perez can win. It's not winning Critics' Choice, and it's not winning PGA. So at best, it's winning with Globe, SAG, and BAFTA, which is not impossible. But a movie needs to win one of those major precursors in order to go the distance. And which is why I'm Still Here is not going to win. Although, one of the great ways to show that Emilia Perez is vulnerable is if I'm Still Here starts beating it in Critics Awards for international feature. If I'm Still Here wins the Critics' Choice Award for international over Emilia Perez, that is a very big strike against it. And it would be a sign that the backlash for Emilia Perez is starting to materialize within the industry. Also, at the the Indie Spirit Awards, which are not usually considered a main precursor, but Emilia Perez is not nominated for picture currently. Anora is, and The Substance is, and either of those could win. But if I Saw the TV Glow wins at Indie Spirit, then for some reason that would almost feel like a pointed nod at Emilia Perez, like, hey, we're giving our Best Picture award to the good trans movie of 2024. And so that's one thing to point out on. So essentially what I'm saying is don't lose hope here. Emilia Perez could very easily still end up losing Best Picture. As of right now, it is the frontrunner. And if I had to place money on it at this moment, I would say Emilia Perez. But there is room for things to change. But I do think, I want voters to know that, hey, this movie, there is backlash and it's not for the reasons you think. I think get the word out there. If more and more people start talking about Emilia Perez as the weakest movie in this lineup and as a movie that would actually not necessarily set the trans community back, but is not the big pro-trans thing that you think it is, then maybe it could lose. As of right now, Emilia Perez has become the Goliath in this race, and usually there's a David to take it out. It would be kind of ironic if the David ended up being Wicked, because that's a $1 billion movie, but who knows? Okay, I think I've said everything I need to say. Let me know if you have any thoughts or comments or any additions to the conversation, and I'll see you later.